Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. An emergency meeting is just getting underway in Chula Vista right now. The topic, what to do about trash that hasn't been picked up in days. KPBS reporter John Carroll joins us live from Chula Vista City Hall. John?
Hey, Maya. Actually, some of those workers in question from Republic Services are now, as you see, going into the City Council chambers for this meeting that should get underway at any moment. We will join them in just a moment, but first let me tell you what's going on here. So this is a special emergency meeting called by Mayor John McCann to deal with the issue that is getting worse by the day in Chula Vista and, by the way, in 3 other South Bay cities. This agenda today of the City Council has all of one item on it, and that is recommended action, hear the presentation and provide direction to staff as appropriate. Now, it's going to be a presentation from Republic Services. That's the company in question here. They have a contract with the city of Chula Vista, mainly for residential trash pickup, whereas in the other 3 entities, San Isidro, Imperial Beach and Otay Mesa, it's mainly commercial as opposed to residential. But right now, Chula Vista is the one in focus tonight. Now, there are several things that the council could do. They could do what they did last time around when this happened in late 2021. That is, they declared a state of emergency, which allowed them to use city workers and some other contractors to pick up the trash, for which they billed Republic Services. This one is different because this strike actually is happening in Boston, Massachusetts, of all places, and they have called on different Republic yards to stand in solidarity with the folks in Boston. So that's what is happening here. It's all the way from Massachusetts, and it is also happening in parts of LA County and in Northern California as well. Now, earlier today, I spoke to the head of Local 542. They are the ones that, Teamsters, that represent the drivers here. Jaime Vasquez is the secretary-treasurer, and he basically blamed this all on corporate greed.
When is it, enough? $1 billion, $2 billion in profit last year, net profit. So how can you say we don't have the money to pay this? How can they say that they don't have the money so that they can resolve this problem now? And all it takes is that.
Now, as I was saying before, this did happen, and you may recall, in late 21 and into early 22. That one only lasted about a month, and then the workers settled a contract, or they arrived at a contract with Republic, and they were able to go back to work. Not sure what's going to happen here. The City Council could declare another state of emergency or whatever else they feel is appropriate. One final note here, that it could happen again with the local. Maya?
Okay, John, thank you. And of course, you are reporting from Chula Vista, but is there any chance of this work stoppage spreading to other parts of San Diego County?
It could. That's up to the folks in Boston if they want to declare or ask other, not locals, but if other yards in San Diego County to stand in solidarity with them. Just a final note that this is probably not going to be out of the headlines for too long, because the overall local here, 542, does go into contract negotiations with Republic next year. So we'll see what happens there. Reporting live in Chula Vista, John Carroll, KPBS News.
Tonight, temperatures falling back into the mid-60s, 65 the low for the city. As you can see, the clouds are still coming in, so we'll have our typical marine layer. But speaking of clouds, there's going to be a few spots that pick up a little bit more moisture over the upcoming days. I'll be breaking down where that is in the forecast ahead.
California and more than 20 other states are suing the Trump administration for withholding federal education funds. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas is in the newsroom with the details. Katie?
Maya, the funding pays for several long-standing programs approved by Congress. They fund things like summer school, adult education, and support for students who are learning English. States usually get that money on July 1st. That's the start of school districts' fiscal years. Now, districts across San Diego County are waiting on about programs.
If working families don't have access, to these after-school programs that generally go till about, 6 o'clock, families have to scramble and make decisions about maybe missing work, in order to, pick up kids or, support kids during those after hours.
And that it was, quote, committed to ensuring taxpayer resources are spent in accordance with the president's priorities. The lawsuit says the Trump administration is violating federal law and the Constitution. It says, quote, it is Congress, not the executive branch, that possesses the power of the purse. The Constitution does not empower the executive branch to unilaterally refuse to spend funds appropriated by Congress and enacted into law. The White House's Office of Management and Budget and the U.S. Department of Education have not responded to KPBS's questions. The Office of Management and Budget told KPBS last week that it hadn't made final decisions about whether to withhold or release the funds. In the newsroom, Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
We appreciate that report, Katie. There's a new effort to increase the number of homeless shelter beds in North and East County, San Diego. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says a local foundation is offering $10,000 for each shelter bed created before next July.
Leaders from the Lucky Duck Foundation want to increase access to shelter for homeless residents in North and East County by up to 150 beds. To make it happen, they're investing up to $1.5 million to expand a shelter model created by the San Diego Rescue Mission.
We will open up one just like this in North County, in Vista.
This is the Rescue Mission's South County Lighthouse homeless shelter. Residents can stay up to 30 days. During that time, they receive case management services, including housing assistance and rehabilitation. Rescue Mission CEO Donnie D says while the future shelter locations are not yet set, they're working on it now.
We'll begin to look at buildings this week and hopefully have that online in the next 6 to 9 months, and we'll open up one in East County hopefully sometime in the next year as well.
Vista City Council recently approved the Rescue Mission operating a homeless shelter within city limits. The city will provide $4.5 million for the building, and the Rescue Mission will be responsible for operational costs. Lucky Duck CEO Drew Moser says this is a cost-effective approach.
With $1.5 million through this approach, we're going to be able to activate as many as 150 shelter beds to help 150 people at one time, but many, many more people over time.
Vista Mayor John Franklin says this new funding is important because the Buena Creek Navigation Center shelter will close in the next year.
We're building a public-private partnership to bring 50 new shelter beds online in Vista. Today, we have 36 beds, but it's a 3-year contract that we're 2 years into, so 1 year from now, that facility will cease to exist, and we need to replace it within the next 12 months.
Plans for the East County facility are in the early stages. The Rescue Mission does not yet know where the facility will be located in that region. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
The San Diego City Council today voted to seek the redevelopment of a dilapidated office building downtown. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it's part of a much larger vision.
The City Operations Building, or COB, was built in 1971. The city tried to replace it with housing and retail space in 2009, but that plan collapsed amid the Great Recession. The building has faced a host of issues over the past decade, including plumbing, HVAC, and elevator breakdowns. Councilmember Sean Ela Rivera blamed past generations of city leaders, who he says built as cheaply as possible with little concern for quality or long-term maintenance.
We're making generational decisions with public property, and this particular building, I think, is a great example of what happens when radical conservative ideology guides public investment, as was happening in California in the 60s and early 70s. And I just want to make sure that we do not repeat the same mistakes again.
City officials hope this property's redevelopment will start breathing new life into San Diego's Civic core, 5 blocks of city-owned properties in the heart of downtown. The City Council also got a presentation Monday from the nonprofit Downtown San Diego Partnership on its vision for the Civic core that includes a new theater, housing, government offices, and an expansion of San Diego City College.
Part of the revitalization vision is to potentially put 2 high-rise residential towers on this site. I think maximizing residential units on that block is exactly right. We need the housing. It's right on a trolley line. It's close to jobs, and the housing will support the other elements of the Civic Center revitalization.
Once the city operations building is officially put on the market, developers will have 60 days to present ideas for the site. The city wants fair market value for the land. At least 25% of the homes on the site must be affordable to low-income households. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
KPBS recently explained in a video how to look up who is in immigration detention. The video went viral on social media, and many people in the comment section raised new questions. Border reporter Gustavo Solis found some answers.
How can you find out if someone has been detained by ICE? How much money are taxpayers spending on immigration detention? And what role do private prison companies play in all of this? Those are just a few of the questions you all dropped in the comment section of our last video, and today we have answers. I'm Gustavo Solis, and this is the Border Brief. The first question was, how do families find loved ones detained by ICE? This should be pretty straightforward. If ICE arrested someone you know, you can just go on this website and look them up on the ICE locator. All you need is their name and country of origin. Now, I said it should be straightforward, but that's not always the case. Sometimes there's a lag of a few days between the time someone is arrested and put into the system. If you cannot find somebody in the ICE locator, you might want to call a lawyer. And the American Immigration Lawyer Association has this helpful tool to help you find one in your area. The second question was, how much money are taxpayers spending on immigration detention? A lot. $3.4 billion in this current fiscal year. And Trump's big, beautiful bill will increase that to more than $10 billion each year. This budget overview from the Department of Homeland Security has a ton of useful information. It tells us that taxpayers spent an average of $157 a day to keep immigrants detained last fiscal year. With 59,000 people detained right now, that's more than $9 million of our money every day. But the cost shifts depending on location. For example, the average cost to keep someone detained in San Diego is $217 a day. The most expensive place was San Francisco with $520, and the cheapest, Dallas with $82. The budget overview also tells us that it's more expensive to detain somebody in an ICE-owned facility than it is in a private facility. Which brings us to the third and last question. What is the role of private prison companies in all of this? It is a massive role, and one that's going to get even bigger with this new funding bill. Let's start right here in San Diego with the Otay Mesa Detention Center. It's owned by a company called Civic that's based out of Tennessee. On the company's first quarterly earnings report, the CEO said that they had never seen this much demand for their services, and they already made $25 million in the first quarter, just the first 4 months of the year alone. Now, it's important to note that these private prison companies don't always have the best track record when it comes to taking care of the people they're detaining. You can find some of my previous coverage about poor medical conditions in that facility at kpbs.org. Thanks for watching. I'm Gustavo Solis. This is the Border Brief, and please keep the questions coming.
One way to follow our immigration coverage is by subscribing to KPBS on YouTube. That's where you'll find all of our content, including all the full episodes of KPBS radio shows and our podcasts. Changes are coming to how students and parents will borrow federal money to help pay for college. Jen Sullivan explains the changes and your options to finance higher education.
The average cost of college tuition and fees at public institutions has risen about 141% over the last 20 years. Right now, nearly 43 million people have federal student loan debt, according to the U.S. government. If you're taking out a loan to pay for college, there's some big changes for students and parents.
You're not going to be able to borrow as much as you could in the past.
Michelle Singletary is a personal finance columnist at the Washington Post. She says President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill overhauls borrowing for families. Under the Parent Plus program, parents will be able to borrow only $20,000 per year or $65,000 total per undergraduate student in federal loans.
I've dealt with a lot of students and parents who have borrowed way too much for college.
Under the repayment assistance plan, borrowers who take out loans after July 1st of 2026 will be allowed to pay based on income.
There's sort of a new standard payment, which will give people, some people longer to pay the loans, which means their monthly payments will be lower, but you're going to pay more in interest.
Borrowers whose federal student loan interest payments were halted under the Biden administration will now have to pay that interest beginning August 1st.
That break is ending, and you need to get in contact with your loan servicer as soon as possible.
There are other ways to get financial help besides federal loans. Some of those options include scholarships, grants, and work-study jobs. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
5 years since the pandemic home buying boom, Americans appear more hesitant to make a big move. Karen Kafa has a look at what potential buyers and sellers need to know right now.
The housing market went from a red-hot spree during the pandemic to higher mortgage rates cooling things down pretty quickly. Now economic uncertainty has some buyers and sellers frozen in place.
Interest rates have pushed mortgage rates higher while home prices continue to climb in many parts of the country, leaving the housing market in a sticky situation.
The housing market's in a really unusual place right now. It's a strange combination of record high home prices and then very low home sales. And all of that's a hangover from the pandemic.
Bankrate housing market analyst Jeff Ostrowski says their research indicates more homeowners are hesitant to make a move.
The idea being they don't want to sell at a mortgage rate above 6% because that means they're going to have to go out and finance their next place at more than 6%.
Zillow senior economist Orphe Divinkey says overall economic uncertainty is rattling the market too.
Remember, when people are uncertain about the future, their future income prospects, well, they tend to sit on their wallets.
And affordability is improving according to Zillow's data, but remains stretched.
The increase in prices, the increase in mortgage rates in the past few years really means that the typical buyer today really needs a lot more to be able to get into the house.
That means first-time buyers may have to make some trade-offs.
Maybe it's a townhouse, maybe it's a fixer-upper, maybe it's a place in a neighborhood that's not your first choice. But definitely this housing market has forced first-time buyers to make compromises.
And while potential home buyers may be nostalgic for the low mortgage rates of the pandemic era, Ostrowski says they're unlikely to return anytime soon.
And Bankrate adds that the best time to buy a home is when you can truly afford it, not when experts say the market is ripe or conditions are most favorable. That means having solid savings, manageable debt, and planning to stay in a home for several years. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
Marijuana has been on a prohibition roller coaster for a long time, but in the past 20 years, it's been legalized for medicinal and recreational use. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge spoke to genetic scientists trying to unlock the secrets of cannabis.
The cannabis plant, a native to Asia, has been used for millennia as a mind-altering drug and a medicine for many ailments. Prohibition in the U.S. forced it underground, but never prevented its cultivation or hybridization. At San Diego Salk Institute, Professor Todd Michael genetically sequenced 193 strains of cannabis to understand just what it's capable of.
We have this very important crop that people have been using for thousands of years, and we know very little about it. Turns out, though, what we discovered is that the plant has a massive amount of potential that we have really just started to understand and really build the tools to be able to tap into. Illumina, which is our sequencer in town.
Michael shows us around a small lab at Salk where his genetic sequencing machines reside. He says he's sequenced thousands of plants, and cannabis is the most interesting and various. And he wants to understand the plant's many ways of making cannabinoids. Those are the chemical compounds that can alter our mind and body. The best known is THC, which makes you high. But there are many more cannabinoids created by a common molecular pathway. What Michael calls the end product requires lots of acronyms to describe.
THC, CBD, CBG, CBC, all these cannabinoids that we want, we can actually manipulate this pathway, and we can make many different types of cannabinoids that right now we call minor cannabinoids.
Those cannabinoids, which are not psychoactive, interact with a set of human receptors called the endocannabinoid system. Some minor cannabinoids have proven to be pretty powerful. CBD can control epileptic seizures. Anecdotal evidence shows it helps treat anxiety and chronic pain. UC San Diego recently studied whether CBD could reduce disruptive behaviors in boys with severe autism. Igor Grant, director of UCSD's Center for Medicinal Cannabis Research, said the results of the study were not definitive, but they were encouraging.
About 2/3 of the kids who got CBD were rated as improved overall by the clinicians, and only 1/3 that got placebo were seen as improved overall.
The search for effective health-enhancing cannabinoids has taken root in the private sector. Phylos Bioscience, based in Oregon, breeds many varieties of cannabis that can be grown from seed. Alicia Holloway is the chief scientific officer at Phylos. She says one cannabinoid with a pretty good story is THCV. That's THC minus a couple of carbon atoms. It's been called diet weed because it gives you kind of the opposite of the munchies. Holloway says Phylos did a clinical trial that did show THCV was energizing and reduced the appetite, so they bred a plant with plenty of it.
And worked on identifying genetic markers that could help us select for plants with higher levels of THCV, and then we developed those plants that now have 20% THCV.
There is a lot of excitement around cannabis these days. Hemp production is legal again thanks to changes in the U.S. Farm Bill. Igor Grant at UCSD wonders if cannabis deserves all the attention. He says many plants have molecules that could interact well in humans. Maybe we've discovered them in pot because its psychoactive effects have captured our attention.
And we as humans, throughout recorded history, have sought to change how we feel, right? And so cannabis is one way to do that. Alcohol is another way to do that. Opioids are yet another way.
Plant geneticist Todd Michael disagrees. He says the relationship between cannabis and cannabinoid receptors in the brain and the body make this plant different.
I would say that it's more than just that we like to get high. I would say there's this very intimate relationship between this plant that can make something that invades not only our consciousness, but also our well-being.
Michael says cannabis is also easy to grow, producing high yields with minimal treatment. That means it's good for producing other things like hemp fiber or cooking oil. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Mosquito season is upon us, and the county is taking steps to help protect the public. The county expanded pesticide treatments in La Mesa through 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Vector control detected West Nile virus in mosquitoes collected in the Rolando area back in June. More were found in La Mesa last week. There have been no human cases reported in San Diego County this year. Are you looking for ways to stave off those pesky mosquitoes? Well, take our quiz on our website. It has interesting science-backed ideas to prevent mosquito bites, from what colors to wear to detract mosquitoes to scents that attract them. Just visit kpbs.org/bugbites. Well, we had some technical difficulties during our report on California suing the Trump administration for withholding federal education funds. And just to recap, California's Attorney General and those from more than 20 other states argue Congress had already approved the funding and that withholding it violates the Constitution and federal law. San Diego County school districts are waiting on more than $50 million.
The good news so far this summer is we've had a pretty quiet one, and we're going to keep things that way, at least for a little while longer. We do have a subtle cooling trend as we go in through Wednesday. The typical morning marine layer, that's found for us day in and day out. That doesn't really change, so coastal communities, you won't notice much difference, even our inland communities. One thing you might note, in the desert communities, monsoonal moisture starts to return, so we're going to be adding at least a few more clouds into those skies as we go into the later part of the week. Tonight, temperatures falling back to 65 for the city, 64 in Oceanside. As you head towards Ramona, we're at 57, and the low in Mount Laguna, 64 for your low there. As we venture into your Tuesday, more of the same for us in the sense of we keep things dry, we keep things warm through the interior, but overall, it's not going to be anything out of the ordinary for us as we talk about July day. Notice the monsoon moisture still holding on here, but it's well far to our east, so we're not tapping into it just yet, which means we're dry as we head through tomorrow. We do have some clouds giving way to more sunshine along the coast. 73 for the high in the city as you work towards Borrego Springs, 107 for that high. Keep in mind, any of the fires nearby can create some issues with smoke, so that will be another factor that we'll be watching. But as we go through the upcoming days, our coastal communities, again, really no change. We hold on to the 70s throughout much of it, the mid-70s, I should say. As you look towards the inland communities, we're going to be right near that 80 threshold as we go into Friday. Saturday, maybe a little bit warmer, and the difference here will be a storm system, a low-pressure system, I should say, that's working in Thursday into Friday for the California coast. And that's going to be well to our north, but it is going to help to intensify some more moisture here over our mountain communities. So we are expecting an afternoon shower or thunderstorm in the forecast there for Friday in our mountain communities. A little bit of rainfall for you. Those chances are still pretty low, but again, a spot or two certainly could pick up that activity. And for our desert communities, expect a few more clouds to continue as we hold on into Friday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya C. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.